Gary, 2 away games this week, not too far for either of them. And we're seeing this weekend and the season generally, just how unpredictable this championship is. How do you approach, I guess, the QPR game in particular?
Yeah, I think we approach the QPR game first, and then we approach the Watford game in a very similar way, in as much as we've showed. I think last season, if we'd have been going into these two games, we would have been incredibly concerned about the fact that we weren't very competitive away from home in terms of the results. I'm not suggesting we will view the games any lighter, but I think after our Bristol City performance, where we created lots of opportunities, we had some good control of the game at a difficult place to go, I think it should give us a little bit of confidence that we're capable of going to places like QPR and Watford and achieving some good results. It doesn't mean it's going to be any easier. It doesn't mean that they're certainly going to be fired up to try and win their home game as you would imagine, and as they should be. So yeah, I think that's the mindset going into it. I think the mindset going into it is going off the back of. If you, I know you can't, because it's football. It's a sport with 3 points attached to every single game, and you want the outcome to be that you get those 3 points. And when you come away with no points, it always feels a little bit difficult to say, I thought we played really, really well, because obviously the game's more than just moments in the game. But I think the performances have been encouraging. I think the performances have been very good. I think we see a slightly different type of team this season, and I think people should be excited by that. What we want to do, we don't want to become a team that plays well and loses games. We want to be a team that plays well, wins, draws, is hard to beat, as well as some of the good bits going forward. So that'll be our main focus.
At the weekend, you were able to name an unchanged team. You didn't have a midweek match preceding it. Given what you said about playing well in the round over the last few matches, where's your mind at with this one?
Yeah, I think you always want to look. I think you don't want to make too many changes when you feel like you're playing well. If I say I'm playing well and make 5 changes, then that belies the comment, doesn't it? And it probably doesn't tell the players that are in the team there's not really a reward for doing well. So I think if I say we've played well, then of course we want to try to keep that continuity going and that consistency going. I've always been a manager to do that. However, of course, when you've got essentially 3 games in a week, one of which has gone, and we've got a game on a Wednesday and a Saturday. Sometimes I view I think the Saturday to Wednesday is less of an issue sometimes than the Wednesday to Saturday, but of course you need to manage the energy of a team, you need to manage the options in the squad that we've got. I think it's a week where players will get an opportunity, whether that comes in the first game, in the second game, in a bit of both, we'll find out. But yes, of course, you want to try and make those sensible decisions. Otherwise, if you're one of those 11, 12 players that are not starting, at some point, you're probably going to be a little bit demotivated if you don't get at least a sniff of an opportunity. So yeah, we'll try and manage the week as wisely as we can.
And when you're at QPR, do you manage the game with a view to the fact you've got another match pretty close on the back of it? For example, might you leave a player out there longer if you didn't?
Maybe, but I think that's never something I'd really enter my mind in some ways. I'd always think I might preempt that before with the team selection, but I think I'd always take the game on its merits and try and perform as well as we can within the game, and then worry about that on the back of that. And I'd go into this Wednesday game and I go into this week with the physical data for the players. I can see who maybe tailed off a little bit against Sheffield United, and maybe that might be one to leave out Wednesday, or it might be that we can play them Wednesday and I probably then have to think about leaving them out Saturday. But again, because there's an international break after it, you're perhaps less worried about long-term, not fatigue, but like tiredness going into the next week. You're more worried about, can they perform physically as well as we'd like in the game, and you create that intensity we've had in the past few games.
QPR gave you one of the most difficult matches you've had as Oxford manager, I think it's fair to say. What do you make of them this season?
Yeah, I think they're a slightly different team. I think they've got lots of elements of similarity in terms of the players, in terms of how to use some of those players. I think the manager coming in is, of course, going to have a slightly different take on the side. They've been strong in different areas. I think they're always strong at home just because, you know, the nature of the stadium and the nature of what always feels like quite a close proximity to the pitch, and it feels like there's always that little bit of extra physicality in the game because of it feels like a tighter pitch, whether it is or not. So I think we have to manage that, and we have to be prepared for that. Never ever had an easy game. Going to Loftus, going to QPR, and I don't expect one this time either. But again, like we said, what we showed against Bristol City. I know I probably can't just use that as an example of what's to come, but I think we saw the level of performance. We saw that actually, maybe this year in some of the away games, it might actually suit us a little bit more than some of the home games when you start to look at the team and its capability, and we'll certainly get a good example of that Wednesday and Saturday with two away games coming up, and be a chance to play slightly differently a little as well.